I guess like what we saw, it wasn't just like some weird reverse culture shock. There's actually some truth behind it. So the average single family house in the United States has overall increased in size since 2000. It reached its peak of 2,467 square feet in 2015 before falling just a little to 2,301 square feet in 2019. So for
America, #1, baby. Let's go. Today I will be reacting to German houses versus American houses. But before I go into that, can I ask you for one thing? If you can leave a like, thank you so much, my friend. This is the best way to show support. If you can subscribe, well, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Now, link for the original video in my description, and let's play it.
the reason why Germans tend to trend more towards multifamily housing as well as renting, it has a lot to do with not only social aspects, but economic aspects as well as historical events.
What? Okay. I don't know anything about this channel, by the way.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, my name's Ashton.
I'm Jonathan.
And along with our son Jack, we're the Black Forest family.
So if you've been following our channel for any length of time now, you will know we bought a house.
Yeah, and ever since we signed the contract documents, gosh, just about what, eight months ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this whole process of being under construction on a new home has really opened our eyes to just how different the construction process is here in Germany from what we're used to in the United States.
Okay, the construction that they are showing on the video seems very, very similar to the construction we have here in Portugal. So this will be really interesting.
You know, it's not just the construction processes. There are some significant differences between houses made in Germany and houses made in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, down to the building materials, the HVAC, but even smaller items like interior detailing such as doors and windows and light switches.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a pretty significant list, I think, that make houses just intrinsically different between the two countries.
And you know,
It's really that
brings up a
different.
great point. YouTube is filled with videos, and there are already some really good ones out there that explain some of these differences.
You know, yeah, you're right. So for example, there's a really awesome video that was done by Feli in Germany. She's a German girl who is living in the United States, and she did an awesome video about this. But you know, also there's another couple called Passport 2, and you might be familiar with them. They're a fellow American couple who are living here in Germany, and they did a great video that just talked about...
You know what? By the way, those videos, I assume they are amazing, but there is a really interesting connection between Germany and America. And I realized this recently with... I was reacting a video with... for example, the amount of immigrants from Germany in America, people with ancestry, you know, that comes from Germany is quite crazy. I wonder if anyone watching me actually relate with this and they have ancestry in Germany.
About some of the differences that we as Americans experience by living in German housing. So please check out their videos. We'll put the links down below in the description if you want to watch those as a primer for this video. But you know, given the fact that we're actually building a house here in Germany and given our professional backgrounds, we also thought that maybe this would be the perfect opportunity to give this topic a proper Black Forest family treatment and really dive deep into why these differences exist, how they came about, and what they can ultimately tell us about each of their respective countries.
All right, and to give a little bit of a background here on why we think we're capable of talking about this, I'll go ahead and get started. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I have been one for the last 10 years. And I really love to learn about how things work and how they operate and how they come together. And I've been living in Germany since 2013. And I've lived now in 3 different apartments here in Freiburg.
And so a little bit about my professional background as well. I can't officially say that I am Dr. Ashton just yet, but my PhD is actually wrapping up next week. But beyond that, I actually have a bachelor's of interior design as well as a master's of architectural studies where I actually did an emphasis in architectural history. So
Okay, so they are really, really super qualified to talk about this. This will be an amazing one. I can already tell you. By the way, I visited Germany one time in my life, and it's a beautiful country, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'm really, really curious because the construction is similar to the Portuguese one.
in addition to that, I also was a university lecturer where I taught courses on construction methods, building design, architectural history, urban planning, you name it. And I also have a professional background working in architecture firms in both the United States and here in Germany.
Okay. Okay, which houses do we compare? I think they will go with the one they are building, right? The other one, I'm not sure.
So I think now many of you are probably wondering at this point, if we're going to be comparing American houses and German houses, how do we know which ones we actually want to examine?
Yeah, to be fair, this is a little bit easier from the American side of things. We just, quite frankly, don't have the depth of history as our European counterparts. But you actually bring up a really good point, because when we look at German residential archetypes, there's a lot to choose from.
Oh, this is true. In Germany, they have they have a lot of different type of homes. I think quite more diverse than my country, actually. Germany is a tremendous, tremendous place, by the way.
Like I said earlier, how do we know which building we want to choose from? Now is the time for us to set up some parameters.
So for starters, we're only going to be tackling modern residential
Makes
construction.
sense.
For us, that's basically anything that was built within the last 100 years. In
100.
addition, we're not going to be tackling, at least in this video, the various regional archetypes of homes in both the United States and Germany.
Yeah, because we know there's a big difference between a New England colonial and a California bungalow.
Yeah, but despite these sort of stylistic differences, they actually still share a lot in common in terms of construction methods and construction materials, for example.
And again, guys, there is a lot to address here. We cannot get all of this into one video. This will be a series, and we will get to all of the points.
Yeah, so in this video, again, we're going to be talking about construction and design. But in our next video, what you can expect from us is a lengthy discussion about differences in housing costs, whether you're renting or buying, or what that means if you want to get a home loan in the United States and Germany. So if you're really interested about this topic and you want to learn more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell.
I want to know more about that, actually.
To be first notified when that next video goes live. So, lass uns anfangen, and let's get started with part 1 of this series, where we specifically take a good detailed look into construction methods and design.
Okay, the American dream and single family.
I think the best place to start out this comparison is to point out the obvious. Americans love having their single family house in their big yard with a white picket fence. This is actually
Hell yeah, I also love this. Is one of the things that I love about America, because having your big home with your family, there is nothing better, I'm sorry.
Actually one of the things that is a pretty accurate stereotype for Americans, because really
love that.
the idea of having your own house and your own piece of land is greatly tied to the American dream.
Okay.
And you know, speaking of this American dream, I feel like this is something I can probably really talk about more in depth, because, well, I don't want this video to be like a soapbox moment for me. I have had quite a few of you ask about what my PhD dissertation is all about. And again, the sort of Cliff Notes version to all of this is that housing in the United States, especially home ownership specifically, is something that the American government doesn't just promote and encourage, they actually, quite frankly, subsidize it. So home ownership, quite frankly...
Wait, what? No, that's crazy. Wait, the government gives money for people to build an house? Okay, I'm moving to America.
Receives far more federal tax subsidies than rental housing. According to analysis by Novogradac and Company of home ownership and rental subsidies, including in the recent Joint Committee on Taxation report, the federal government will actually provide more than $400 billion in tax subsidies for home ownership over a 5-year period. For rental housing, it's less than $72 billion. Guys, that's a 6-to-1 ratio. So while
But why? I mean, nothing against, but now I'm okay. This is super, super interesting.
I don't want to bore you to death with the topic of my PhD dissertation. If you're really that interested, it'll be published later this year.
Okay.
But essentially, all of this is to say that the US federal government far, far out subsidizes private wealthy homeowners than they do low-income families.
Okay, sorry. My friends, I have to read this. 64% of Americans are homeowners, a percentage that rose last year for the first time in more than a decade. Great. However, 64% of the population receives nearly 85% of housing tax subsidies in the Internal Revenue Code, according to... Okay. I had no idea about this, my friends. Of course not. Makes sense that I had no idea, but this is quite fascinating.
And ultimately, that says a lot about what it means to own a home in the United States.
So when we were back in the United States for Christmas last year and we were driving through the suburbs, it became absolutely apparent that single-family houses were everywhere. People having their own house, their own massive yard, and multi-family houses in many areas are actually very uncommon.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily use the word reverse culture shock, but
it kind of was.
Kind of, yeah. Right. So, I mean, there's actually some pretty significant statistics that also back up our observation. As of October 2021, there were 208.4 million single-family dwellings in the United States. And by comparison, there were only 37.8 million multifamily units.
Okay, I think I'm losing something on their points, my friends. By the way, great video so far, but I feel like they are presenting this as a bad thing. But this is a good thing. I mean, a family have their home. Amazing. Am I off on something? I mean, I don't know, because I relate with them, the American dream in that sense. I also have my home with my family, you know. It was one of my dreams.
And guys, when we were driving through the United States over Christmas time, we were in Kansas City and we were in Illinois, and it really just kind of seems like houses just continue to get larger.
Yeah, again, I don't know.
Amazing again. I'm sorry. Oh man. Okay, sorry. I've been realizing that I identify with I identify, maybe not the correct word, but I guess nowadays I can identify as an American, right? But I really do. You know, that's amazing. My house is not crazy big, but if I had land like you guys have in America, it will be a big house, 100%. And if I had money, of course.
If we've just been
small detail.
Living in Germany for too long, but it does seem like things just continue to become more and more massive in the United States.
Let's go.
But again, when we came back and we did a little bit more research on this, I guess what we saw, it wasn't just some weird reverse culture shock. There's actually some truth behind it. So the average single family house in the United States has overall increased in size since 2000. It reached its peak of 2,467 square feet in 2015 before falling just a little to 2,301 square feet in 2019. So for
America, #1, baby. Let's go.
Our German audience, that's approximately 200.
But to be honest, I feel like I'm going against the river. You know what I mean? Because I think there will be a point that makes sense for houses to be small, and I'm not getting that point.
15 to 230 square meters on average.
Which is totally mind-boggling for us because the house we bought here is a little more than half of that. And you know, there are, of course, some reasons for this. America is very large and the land is relatively cheap. There's space for people to spread out and build their own house with their own yard with a big white picket fence.
Yeah, having a house like the ones you are seeing on the screen here, you are a millionaire. 100% a millionaire.
All right, now guys, so by contrast, here in Germany, they not only have a larger proportion of the population that rents versus owns, but they also have a much larger proportion of the population living in multifamily housing.
Yeah, don't get us wrong. You can
In Italy, this also happens a lot, by the way. If you guys remember around the COVID time when Italy was one of the countries that was doing the worst, one of the main reasons, at least that the news reported, was because there was a lot of multi-families in a single house. You know what I mean? Okay.
find plenty of large single-family houses in the countryside, but it's important to point out that in Germany, the houses and the renting population is going to differ significantly.
So what exactly is behind this trend towards multifamily housing and such a low home ownership rate?
I can answer this one for them, and let's see if I'm correct, because buying a house is almost impossible in Europe. I mean, the housing market is insane. Insane. I mean, I bought my house in 2000, early 2020. I believe it's at least 50%, maybe 2x. No, 2x maybe not, but it's probably 50% up. It's crazy. I'm not telling, but it's crazy.
Well, there are a couple of reasons, and to tackle the elephant in the room about Germany's heavy rental market, it kind of has something to do with what happened in the 1930s, 1940s.
Yeah, that unpleasant business. So by the time Germany's unconditional surrender in May of
What?
1945, it's important to note here that 20% of Germany's housing stock was in rubble. Some 2.25 million homes were gone.
Never thought about this. This makes a lot of sense. Okay, maybe my theory is completely out of the window, but I think not.
Another 2 million were damaged, and a 1946 census showed that an additional 5.5 million housing units were needed in what would ultimately become West Germany. And Germany's housing wasn't the only thing in tatters. The economy was just a disaster. Financing was practically non-existent, and the currency was virtually worthless. So if Germans were going to have a place to live, some sort of government program was the only way to rebuild it. And soon after West Germany was established in 1949...
You know what's crazy about Germany? And they kind of remember me, America, in one sense. Because they have a great spirit. Because if you really look at this, Germany is completely destroyed after the war. And I think it's the most powerful country in Europe right now. You have to admire this construction, It's quite impressive, really.
The government pushed through...
And I believe was women that made Germany great. Amazing.
Its first housing law, and home building boomed thanks to a combination of direct subsidies as well as a generous tax exemption that was available to public, nonprofit, as well as private entities. West Germany actually chopped its housing shortage in half by 1956, but the vast majority of new housing units were rentals in multifamily buildings. And you might be wondering why, and what we found was that basically there was little demand for potential buyers. The German mortgage market was incredibly weak, and quite frankly, German banks required borrowers to plunk down huge chunks of money.
So there are some more modern reasons for this too. So for example, in the United States, if you own your house and you live in your house, you have a mortgage on your house, you can actually deduct the interest from that mortgage on your taxes. But in Germany, if you're an owner...
And this makes sense. I mean, I love America. This makes a lot of sense. Of course you should. And here you cannot do it. I mean, I remember looking at this and yeah, it's not possible. I guess it's possible for some old contracts, but for my case I could not apply for that.
Of the house, you have a mortgage, you cannot deduct it.
In addition, German banks are a lot more risk averse. It's gonna make getting a home loan a lot more expensive and harder to get. That's not necessarily a bad thing because America doesn't exactly have the best track record in terms of making secure, good, sound investment home loans.
So now we are talking 2008 with the bank crash. It is what it is.
There were
that
some
aren't
problems.
risky.
Yeah.
A few
That may
problems.
have impacted the whole world.
A bubble may have burst.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll just put it that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Okay, I know this is very unrelated, but who is this actor? Because I see his face in a lot of memes, but I never got it. Is he famous in America?
I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Now, guys, I think like just to sort of summarize all of this here, I feel like it's important to note that what we've listed out are just a couple of reasons. It's not an exhaustive list here. But it just effectively goes to show that the reason why Germans tend to trend more towards multifamily housing as well as renting over buying, it has a lot to do with not only social aspects, but economic aspects as well as historical events. And I think this really just sort of goes to show that you can really learn a lot about a country's history as well as its socioeconomic status by taking a deeper look into what its housing trends are.
American wood frame construction. This is, for me, this is probably what makes houses to be built much faster in America, because wood is there is people putting all of that stuff up very fast. I have a video about that, by the way.
So, and for a number of historical, economic, and political reasons, houses in America are just newer.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, you know, really, this isn't just an observation. Again, this can kind of be backed up by statistics. What we do know is that of the 140 million houses in the United States, about 2/3 of them, like 62%, they were all constructed since 1970. That means that 2/3 of all of the houses in the United States are about 50 years old or less, which is kind of crazy when you think about just the incredible architectural history that you experience every day living here in Germany.
All right, guys, I think one of the obvious points here to make is that houses in the United States can be made relatively cheap and also very quick, which is one of the reasons why in the last 50 years this housing boom has gotten started.
Yeah, and I guess as part of that too, it should also be noted that in the US, you know, wood is pretty abundantly available, and it's again also pretty cheap, which makes for it to be pretty much like the natural choice for how we should construct our homes. Now, don't get me wrong, there will always be exceptions to this rule, but on average, in the US, homes are built with wood framing sitting on top of a concrete foundation or a basement. The walls are going to be insulated with typically fiberglass insulation, and the interior walls will use drywall or sheetrock, which is gypsum plaster pressed between sheets of thick paper. From there, the exterior is usually going to be some kind of combination of brick, vinyl, or wood siding, or even EIFS, which is an exterior wall cladding that uses rigid insulation boards on the exterior of the wall sheathing with a plaster appearance exterior. The roof shingles are also going to be made from fiberglass asphalt in various shades of colors. Typically, this is in gray or black, but again, that changes with whatever is fashionable at that particular time.
And you know, guys, really by choosing this construction method, houses in the United States can be built really fast, or at least relatively fast. So you can really go start to finish in about 7 months.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
What? You can build an house in 7 months in America? Oh man, my baby took longer than that. That's insane. A house here is like 2 years, 3 years, if things go well. Of course, it depends a lot in your budget and if you can have a lot of people working at... but it's much, it's not even comparable. Okay.
When you compare it to Germany, but I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Now, in our experience of actually building a house in Germany, we've actually found that things just tend to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, like we signed our contract in June, and when we did that, the foundation was already poured. It was
Yes.
already
By the way, this happens here so much. The bureaucracy, is that the word? I hope so. Is crazy. Basically, you have a lot of papers. You have to see a lot of laws. If your city allows this, allows it's awful.
excavated, obviously, and this is in like a development which has already been under construction for a while.
Right.
And we hope to move in this August.
Yeah, and that's actually been pretty surprising because, like Jonathan said, all of the utilities were there. It was ready to go. It was already really in the process of being built, but we kind of can anticipate at least 14 months before this house is actually finished. And granted, that has a lot to do with the fact that, well, for one, the pandemic has put an incredible stress on the construction industry.
For sure.
The lead times on materials are so much longer than what they would normally be. Yeah, absolutely. But on top of all that, we actually got a letter from our developer in December saying that there was a COVID outbreak on the construction site and they had to close down for basically an entire month. Yeah, there's a lot that's going to have to happen in the next 5 months, so we'll be sure to keep you posted. But our experience of building a house in Germany actually isn't all that abnormal. In general, we found by doing research for this video that in total and on average, in general, because there will always be exceptions here, it usually does take a little bit longer to construct a house in Germany. And part of that has to do with simply the way they build their homes.
So when it comes to living, Germans love solid construction, and so do we. And you know, that figure is actually backed up by the Federal Statistic Office.
Yeah. So their findings in specific found that between 2000 and 2015, solid structure houses accounted for 85% of all of the homes built in Germany.
So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and actually our house qualifies as this solid construction form. And let me explain just here a little bit. So our house in particular uses a combination of both
Seems a beautiful home, by the way.
concrete walls, as well as something called Kalksandsteinmauerwerk, which
What? Okay.
is effectively a limestone, sandstone, concrete with what's called Wärme dem Verbund system, which is a warm insulating compound system. And this is really common in modern German residential
Oh, my home have this. By the way, yeah, this is exactly what my home. Yeah,
construction.
I know the word in Portuguese. That's the translation in German. In German, yeah.
So solid construction is basically built around non-flammable materials, but I think it's important to keep in mind your timber built houses aren't just gonna spontaneously combust.
Yeah, okay. In all fairness, though, these solid construction buildings, they're also going to offer a lot of additional benefits, like being a lot more soundproof, as well as having a higher insulative value than the thin walls of the timber-framed buildings in the United States.
Which is actually really important in Germany because everything is so densely packed together. Not hearing your neighbor is a hugely advantageous selling feature, where in America everything is wood and you don't have a neighbor to listen to, so it's really not a big problem.
Yeah, although I can say that from living in an apartment building in the United States that is actually built out of like wood frame construction, you hear everything.
Everything.
Including entire conversations.
Yes.
We're not doing anything. We're just sitting around talking.
Oh, I remember this
I
episode.
can hear you through the ceiling. My cats can't sleep.
But, to be balanced and fair, I feel like we also shouldn't necessarily just sing the praises of German construction because there are naturally going to be some trade-offs here. So I think at least it's good that we at least mention them. So for example, any future changes to the home are probably going to be a lot more costly and more time-consuming with a house that is solid construction. In addition,
This is 100% true. I mean, if everything is made by wood, not wood. Wow. Okay, going back to the point, it's quite adaptable. You know what I mean?
the primary
But here it's bricks. You have to break it. It's kind of crazy.
energy consumption and the CO2 emissions in the production of the raw materials are significantly higher than with timber structures. Plus, they're not necessarily regenerative. and only conditionally recyclable. But you know, for us, I feel like ultimately we just really love that German houses sort of feel like they're built to last.
Yeah, they really do. Like they have a solid feel, even though they're called solid construction. And I think it's really kind of pointed to the fact that Germans typically will do things properly.
And of course, you know, there are really some
BMW, Mercedes, Audi. Yeah, Germany, they know their stuff. Let's be real.
wonderful home developers in the United States.
course.
So we don't want to just overgeneralize here, but it does feel a little bit like American construction tends to be like slap and dash sort of approach. But here in Germany, it's also really quite telling, I think, that solid construction residential homes, they actually tend to be sold for a higher value than their prefab counterparts.
Oh yeah, this is yeah. I mean, and there is almost a stereotype if you buy that house that is not solid. You know, it's like okay, that guy that does not have money for the real one almost.
So it's not really just an observation.
It's going away a bit, but in the past it was crazy. I mean, you have to build a home from the scratch and yeah, put concrete, bricks, all the stuff. You have to do it.
And it's actually worth something in the end.
Okay.
All right, guys. So as a reminder, this is part one of many videos that we're making on this.
Oh, this was
topic.
amazing.
The next video that we're going to be covering is the cost, because as we said, we did try to include this in this video and it just exploded out of control, but we will be covering that in more detail next time.
And in addition to that,
I mean, I assume the German house is quite more expensive. And even looking at the benefits you have in America.
guys, if there's something really specific that you want to learn more about, whether that has to do with renting or buying or the design or the interior fittings, or there are so many different ways that we could take this topic, and we'd love to hear from you. What would you like to see in future episodes relating specifically to housing and residential structures in both the United States and Germany?
Because we want to cover all of it.
Yeah, so please let us know down in the comment section below.
This was amazing. I
And
really enjoyed it.
As always, if you've enjoyed today's video, we would love it if you hit that thumbs up
I will.
button.
And to follow more of the Black Forest family content, hit that subscribe button.
So,
Hey guys, please go to check their channel. I thought this was an amazing video. I'm not overreacting. I really enjoyed this one.
until next time,
Bis bald.
cheers!
Adios. No.
So in total,
Professional. God damn.
huge. It's huge. It's a tradition. It's a tradition, Martin.
Yeah, what? Okay.
You know what? These type of videos are the opposite of what I do. I press record, I go.
Modern 100 years?
Yeah. Well, it depends. Modern is a relative term. Yeah. Some people say modern is anything since Queen Victoria in the Victorian period, if you really want to get
that's
technical
fair.
with it. But yeah,
Maybe really old people would say that.
it depends. There's like the industrial age, so anything post-industrial revolution. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
I didn't pay attention to that for school.
Okay. So, until next time, cheers. Oh, sorry. Okay, so until next time. I thought you were gonna go.
Okay, this was amazing, my friends. Again, go to check the channel. I always link. I always link, but I always leave the link on my description. And yeah, share with me your thoughts about this. I thought it's a great video to debate here in the comment section. And I prefer the American way, as you guys know. But this was really cool. My friends, thank you so much for watching. Really means a lot that you guys end up spending this time with me. Do not forget to like, to subscribe, all the good stuff. See you guys in the next one.